Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Hello and welcome to another amazing night here on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in as it's Lon Strickler and Strange Days tonight. Lon from phantomsandmonsters.com. We got a great night of radio planned for you, so I hope you all enjoy it, including race fan in the gold medal position, SJ with a silver, Chris 716 with a bronze medal tonight. Hi there, Tim Mothman and his goatee. Michael Morris, Little Cam over on YouTube this time. Yeah, just got out of the gym. Yep, he was shoulder pressing 682 pounds tonight, 27 times. Little Cam will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Dino Bravo, Michael Fontaine, Melissa Nicole, good to have you all here. Yes, my birthday weekend was amazing, Melissa. Thank you. Les Paul Holland, yes, Area 51 Dave, that's me. Oh, Dirty Filth just popped in. There he is. And Tim in the backwoods. Deidre, how are you? Eternity Eternal. Mama Catherine. Mwah! I love you, my dear. I love you so, so much. Can't wait to see you next year. Hopefully sooner. Pissing me off, Evan Walters. You're here way too early. All right, moving on. Let's say hello to Digger Dog. And who is next here? Scrolling on down. Melvin from Mars. Good to have you here. And Cosmic Joe, thanks for coming on in. Who's next on our roll call? Well, let's take a look. It's Doc from Wyoming. Richard Steele, how you doing, my friend? Good to see you. Flat Six, how are you? Millennium, my man. Thank you for coming on in. Let's scroll on down. Number 21 in your program, starting at left wing from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. And B, how are you? Purple-haired Pixie Lara, thank you for coming on in. Hello there, President Zaddy. F-U. Christine Lynn, Paul Demon, and Commonwealth Andrew, good to see you all. Chill Farm, Escape from Blue Jersey, good to see you both. Hi, W. David Page, Dragonfly, Lee the Bee, Skip to my Lou, and the gorgeous and amazing Kira. How are you all? Thank you for coming on in. Robert Anthony, good to see you. As we continue on with the roll call, there's Jeff Steve Garvey. He'll hit a home run for you. Giannis Rost, welcome to SOR Chat. Giannis, I love the name. Love the name. Sierra, good to see you. Sierra will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Don't make eye contact. She doesn't like it. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Mortal Clown, welcome to SOR Chat. Dizzy F. and Reed, nice to see you. And Matthew Goodka, Lightwalkers, thank you for coming on in. Scrolling on down, Aaron Bacca, thank you for joining us. Creasy, welcome to SOR Chat. Hope you enjoy this, your first time listening. We'll even throw you up on the screen there. Hello, how are you? Love the picture, by the way. S. Vermet, good to see you. And we're getting ready here to do the radio and podcast side. Hold on. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're getting into the monsters and phantoms and monsters. Lon Strickler, Strange Days from phantomsandmonsters.com is here to tell us some creepy, spooky stories that might just pull our socks right off as we await the arrival of Bill WD-40 to lube us up for tonight. We are in roll call and want to remind everybody the super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. And you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. Not worried about the Oilers' loss tonight because 5 games left. 4 games after tonight. 4 games left. Not worried. All right. Bill WD-40 is in, currently lubing us up as we speak, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want that rigidness. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for the lube, Bill. We very much appreciate you lubing us up for tonight. And let's see. Anybody else new come in here? I don't see anybody. But we are getting ready. It's going to be a great show here. So we need a favor here momentarily. Throw your horn. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America. Thank you so much for tuning us in. We greatly appreciate it. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can find all of our archives for free at youtube.com/spaced out radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. We're on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We are going to have a fun show tonight, as we do every time Lon Strickler is on with Strange Days. Lon's website, phantomsandmonsters.com. We will get to him momentarily. Then in hour number 3, we have Steve Stockton bringing us another spooky story. After that, well, let me tell you, the mustache king of the world. Yeah, the mustache king of the world, Terry Hall, will be filling in for Courtney on the UFO report. All right, let's get right to it. Our good friend Lon Strickler is back for Strange Days. He's been doing this a few years now, as we bring him on monthly to talk about the weird, strange monsters that seem to be lurking around the North American forest, whether it's Mothman in Chicago, Bigfoot in British Columbia, Nessie over in the UK. Yes, we do sea monsters as well, from sea hags to mermaids and everything in between. Sprinkle in a few ghosts and alien stories. Well, you have phantomsandmonsters.com. You can find all of Lon's books at Amazon or on his website. It is always a pleasure to have Lon Strickler here on Spaced Out Radio. Lon, looking good, my friend. The hair is tight. The beard is looking magnificent. How you been?
I've been hanging in there, man. Doing pretty good.
Me too. As you know, it was my birthday weekend. You know, I feel a little sullen today. Sullen. And I never use the word sullen. That's how important it is that I say I'm sullen today. Because my grandson went home. I wanted one birthday present this past weekend. And it was my grandson to come up with my daughter. Because he's only a year and a half, and I haven't seen him like 9 months, man. So he came up and we hung out, and dude, we had when I got home from work on Friday, I get a little choked up by this. When we got home from work on Friday, I got greeted by him at the door, and he's reaching up for Grandpa. So of course Grandpa picks him up, because what am I supposed to do? And it gives me this giant bear hug where he puts his head down on my shoulder, and I'm just like, oh, just melting my heart. Then he did something that was really interesting, Lon. He put his head we went and put his forehead right on my forehead. And we stood there literally for about 3 minutes, and it was like we were connecting on some otherworldly level. I don't know what it was, but it was just like I could feel his love and his energy and his power through just us touching foreheads, and I'm like, do I move? Do I not? Do I break this connection? I'm like, no, this is pretty awesome. And after about 3-4 minutes, he actually broke off the connection. And I don't know what the heck he was feeding me, Lon, but it was pretty powerful and pretty loving, my man.
Well, it's nice to have grandkids.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I get it. I understand. Mine just finished. Well, it's finished. Well, she did finished her first year at University of Kentucky. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Awesome. You got to be pretty proud.
Yeah, she's a good kid.
Yeah, I'm sure we could have this entire conversation about our grandkids, man, but we got to get to some monsters here. We're getting into mid-spring here, the summer solstice right around the corner as we look forward to things warming up and people getting outside. How's the monsters been over the last time we talked to you?
Been busy. I mean, I'm getting a lot of little bit of here and there. We got a really great account from outside of Chicago, which I sent you, and from a guy who actually saw this thing 3 times.
Oh my!
And it was, he got a hold of me the third right after the third time he saw it, and he didn't mind use his name or anything. He was very forthright. Tobias talked to him as well. So, and we've had some pretty decent sightings coming out of Chicago, even though 2 of them are older. But hopefully, this is going to pick up again.
You see things or say things are getting a little bit hotter. Is it one specific? Is it paranormal? Is it cryptid and monsters? What's really picking up?
Mostly cryptids. We've been working on these cryptid canines around here more so lately, and we got another area that we're going to be looking into down in Maryland again. And I think when we're getting in later to the summer, going into the fall, it'll pick up again in Pennsylvania. Normally, when it gets really hot, it just seems to die off a little bit around here. I guess it just gets way too hot. But I think when the weather cools off, it's gonna pick up again. I just got a feeling, like you and I talked before. I think 2024 is going to be a very busy year, and so far it hasn't disappointed us. And we got some projects coming up, and some things we're involved with. So unfortunately, I can't really say too much about it, but it's going to be a good year, I think.
I want to ask you about a topic that's been on my mind lately, and that is with hotspots. We hear about UFO hotspots. We hear about paranormal hotspots. What's your idea of these hotspots? What do you think they are?
Yeah, it just depends on the situation. I think, well, in this area, and what I consider hotspots are areas where we get multiple sightings of different phenomena. I think it has to do a lot with the geography, the geology, and of past incidents, things that had left the energy there, or that have raised the energy to where these beings feel more comfortable being around there. And we got a few of those in Pennsylvania. And, I live right down the street from one at Gettysburg. So, it's not only ghosts at Gettysburg. We get a lot of different things in Gettysburg. And, but, here in Pennsylvania, it's an area, it's a state that just offers so many different things. I was reading just the other day that Pennsylvania now, even though a lot of the virgin forests are gone, and back in the late 1800s, it was almost deforested. But right now, Pennsylvania is like 59% forest.
Nice.
So it's, there's a lot of area for these things to roam.
You don't expect to run into a cryptid creature when you're out in the forest, but how do you know if you're in one of these hotspots?
Well, I know for me, I feel it. I mean, you know, I'm intuitive. I just get that sense of energy. I feel it. Whatever. I mean, I can normally sense things are going to happen, or it's going to be, you know, it's going to be an area where something may pop up. I hear people describe it different ways. I mean, you know, it's just not all intuitive. It has to do with a lot of visual and, of course, just the way the people sense things as they come in there. And you know how it is. You know, you got your own little special area, and you know how it feels when you go in there. It just, you know, you just feel like something, you know something's there. Not necessarily that you can see it at that time, but you just know it. And that's the way it is with me and a lot of other people. It's just that you just get that sense that it's around. So I guess that's the best way I could describe it.
For people who may not understand what that sense is, can you describe that for us, please?
Well, for me, I sense energy through different means. A lot of it has to do with my mind's eye and seeing colors. I distinguish certain activity by seeing colors in my mind's eye. I don't necessarily see energy, but I can feel it. Mm-hmm. It's almost like a barometer in a way. I get that feeling like a tense feeling. Sometimes it's audible. I will get many times I will get a like a bee buzzing sound around portal areas or areas where it just seems to be heavy concentration of energy. Of course, when you go to Gettysburg or other places like that where there's spiritual activity, many times the energies try to get your attention. It's just like me going into a cemetery for a funeral, or going to a funeral home, or even an antique shop. The energy just remains, and many times they just sense, they just want to communicate, and they just want to let you know that they're there. That's what happens to me as far as cryptids go. I think a lot of that is very, very similar. There are many times I go into an area where I just got this sense that something's going on. It's hard to describe, but you just get on alert, and those senses just all heighten, and you're watching for anything. It doesn't pan out most of the time, but it's palpable.
Paranormally speaking, have you ever seen a possession happen?
I have been in one situation where it could have very well been a possession. It was more oppression, but it could have very well been, a possession. But it didn't really get to that point. When people talk about possessions, they usually talk about, it's always the demon this, demon that. But energies from people who had passed away, that in life they were, just evil. That transmutes into death many times. And of course, you can run into all kinds of different things that were not living at a previous time, that you have evil energy to it, or something that can cause either a really bad attachment, an oppression, or even in a house or a home or anywhere where the energy just is really, it's just really bearing hard down on whoever's living or on the living. as far as possession, I can't really say that it was a possession. The one case I'm thinking of, but it's been close.
The reason why I bring that up is I have a story for you.
Okay.
You know, I do the ghost tour at my local museum. We've talked about that before.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 weekends ago, we were doing a tour, and I actually, first time ever, had a lady possessed on the tour by a ghost. Like, literally took over her entire body. And I'd never seen this before, never dealt with it before. And we were upstairs in the barn where, for people who don't know, we have a long, probably about a 60, 70-yard Clydesdale barn. It's still one of the longest and largest A-frame buildings in the world. And it's about 115 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Gorgeous. I love that building, Lon. I love it. Anyways, I was showing them the ghost that we have up on our catwalk there, who's always looking down and staring at people. And we walked into one of the sections in the middle of the barn. And I brought the group in there. I went in, didn't feel anything, because normally I'm always seeking out energy, but I was concentrating on the guy up on the catwalk. And apparently, this spirit was hiding around the corner. And when he saw the lady come in, he went right into her.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see her leave. I saw, all of a sudden, I heard a little kerfuffle. We're only in there about 2-3 minutes. And I see her friend all of a sudden say, "I'm out of here," and ran right past everybody and then ran downstairs. So I went to check on her, and that's where I saw this lady named Jamie. And when I got to her, she was being helped by one of our museum helpers. And she was bent over like the letter L, and she was like paralyzed. And I had to fight for her to stand up and look me in the eyes. And it was the weirdest thing. I watched her face morph in front of me. Her voice changed to something really, really deep and masculine. She, at one point when she started, I had her put my hands in her hands. And at one point she started like tugging on me violently to drag me across the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And then she started stomping her feet. And this went on for about 25, 30 minutes before I was able to get this guy out of her. And there was at one point in there where I was like, uh-oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. What if I can't do this? What do I do? And I immediately got that out of my brain space, because I knew that I could, number one. But number two, I knew if I showed weakness and fear, this thing had control. And man, when it released partially into me.
Mm.
And then I had to get cleared afterwards. But man, so this is what she was able to pick up from the guy inside of her, was that he was around 22 years old, and that his legs were injured somehow, mangled, or whatever it may be. And the funny part about it is, when we went and looked at the history of this all, last winter, there was a young man killed on the highway about 10, 11 kilometers from the museum. So kilometers, it's about 7 miles, 6.5, 7 miles, on a head-on collision. Well, what happens on a head-on collision? Your legs get broken. And he was 21 years old, and he died at the scene.
He probably doesn't even know he's dead.
Well, that is what one of our psychic ladies said, is that he doesn't know.
Yeah, he doesn't know he's dead. It's so new, and that was a really strong attachment, basically, because he was able to pop back into you, or he's going to if he's still around there, he's going to probably do that. I mean, that if he sticks around there, that's what he's going to do.
He's still there. We went back
Yeah.
this weekend for a tour, and you could feel his energy
Yeah.
around the barn. He was still some angry. Still some angry.
Are they doing anything to try to alleviate that at all?
That's our job. We're trying to do that. We have a psychic in touch with him, trying to explain to him what is going on,
Yeah.
and you know how we're able to let him know that it's time to move on. We got him out of the barn. That was our first goal, which we accomplished this weekend. Was that we needed to get him out of the barn for a couple reasons. Safety of one. For him, because we have one very angry spirit in there, the guy on the catwalk who really knows his strength. And number two, for the safety of our patrons, who we don't need him attacking anymore.
Mm-mm.
And it was weird because I went in there before the museum, before we did our tour. And I kind of had a stern talk with him, like, you're not going to pull this crap on our tour with our tour people. Like, you're just not going to pull this. And the energy was very apologetic, but it felt like a real hollow apology, like he was only telling me what I wanted to hear. And then my good buddy Phil, he cleared him out of the barn afterwards, but he's still on the property surrounding. He's still there.
Well, I mean, as long as he's got enough there where he feels comfortable, he's going to stick around. If it gets to the point where he just doesn't feel comfortable, he's going to move on somewhere. So, yeah, I mean, I hope who's ever going to do the clearing, or who's ever going to try to do the clearing, knows what to do, make things a little uncomfortable for him. If they've got free will. If it wants to move on, it moves on. You go to another level. If you got somebody who's got the ability to clear an energy onto another level, then yeah, fine. Yeah, I'm just by you talking, I'm sensing that's what it was. I mean, he just didn't know he was dead, and he still didn't know he was dead. And with the reaction that he got out of you and got out of everybody else, especially someone who's connected, he may move on. That might just be all it takes. But you've got to wait and see. You never know.
We got just over a minute to go here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Lon Strickler in Strange Days is with us. How does a spirit not know they're dead?
If it was a quick death, it happens. It does. It happens many times. I think most hauntings are a result of a quick death, to where they just don't realize what's going on. They see or sense the living around them, but they can't understand why they can't communicate with them. And that's hauntings are nothing more than an energy just trying to communicate for the most part. Now, sure, it depends what they're like and how they react to the people around them, what they do to try to get your attention. It freaks out the living, and that's why people call people like us to come in. But many times when you're trying to move them on, a lot of times they just don't even realize they're dead, or they just don't really understand what's going on. And for most part, my experience is that it doesn't take a whole lot of coaxing in most cases, but there are times when it takes a bit.
Lon, let's continue this conversation when we return. Lon Strickler, Strange Days. Do people know they're dead when they're dead? We'll figure it out next. PhantomsandMonsters.com is Lon's website. This is Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We'll be right back. All right. Lon, your good friend Mortal Clown wanted to see what Dirty Filth was drawing. So I'm going to zoom that in there so they can see it. Thank you, Deborah Rooney, for kicking off the super chat tonight. Very much appreciate your love and support, my dear. What do we got here, Dirty?
Aliens wearing bathing suits at the beach.
It looks, I was going to say, it looks very beachy or desert-like so far.
And the Nightcrawler as well.
You love your Nightcrawlers when Lon's around.
They're pretty spooky.
Mm-hmm.
With the walking pants.
He's wearing shorts this time, though.
Oh, okay.
Are you going to put a fin in the water?
Maybe.
Yeah. That'd be kind of cool.
We'll see if we can get one in there.
Look at you using gray felt that you can barely see.
Oh, it comes through in person. You just can't see it on my camera very well.
That's the chest there.
Oh, doing pretty good. Nice body to it.
Yeah. Flowing, man. Flowing.
Yes.
Bet you Lon, with that hair and beard combination, I bet you he has one hell of a good set of chest hair. I know that sounds weird, but I don't really care. I just want to make him laugh by saying that.
Well, I do actually, and it's just a pain in the ass anytime I go to the hospital because they're always tearing it off when they're pulling probes and everything off of me.
Oh, man. I remember my grandfather was just a Sasquatch. And I was just praying growing up that I would not. My grandfather had the almost exact same body as George the Animal Steel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you had hair on top of his back too, huh?
Oh, man. He was like his own bear rug, you know?
It makes me laugh. I had a few procedures over the years, and it's funny when they put the monitors on you when you're in surgery, and they start taking them out. They're always, "Oh, I'm sorry." I don't even bother telling me. I mean, I guess I'm gonna have to shave my chest before I go in there next time again.
Careful, you might get them nurses chasing you.
It's funny. The local hospital, most of the nurses that are there in surgery, I went to school with, so I know most of them. So that's usually an interesting conversation. But
Yep. Man, that's always good. It's always good. Dirty Filth, your art is amazing. Each and every
Thanks,
time.
Dave.
Where's Blob tonight?
Outside with the missus. Just took a little bit of sunlight.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's getting to that time of the year. What's a daylight there till? Because here it's about just after 10 o'clock now.
Oh, you're further north too. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I love about this time of year, man. And knock on wood, the mosquitoes haven't come out yet.
We're getting, well, I mean, the forest fires up in Ontario and up there, you can't walk outside here. You smell it really bad again. Huh?
You got bad smog again?
Yeah. It's been bad the smog hasn't been bad, but you can smell it really bad.
Right.
I go out for a walk, and especially in the evening, and geez.
Yeah. I hear you, man. I hear you. And you know what I find amazing is that I'm not going to say there's a conspiracy here, okay, because I don't really like conspiracy theories. But I will say this. It's very interesting that in the current regime's power, and I call them a regime, that prior to that, we never had these super fires up here.
Yeah, well, the problem is, and I have talked to somebody about that.
Hold that thought, because we're coming
Okay.
back in like 3 seconds. Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in. Hey, I want to tell all of you that if you want to listen to this show for free, you can always do so on any major podcast network or on youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Lon Strickler, Strange Days, continues here on The Big Show. We're talking about, do people know when they die? Lon says it's always a flip of a coin. If it happens really fast, say a car accident or something like that, they may not know. Lon, welcome back.
Hey, Dave. Yeah, that's true. I mean, there are many times when I have been in a situation where, when you're trying to get to the bottom of a case and it turns out that the person may have actually died very quickly and they just don't seem to know they're dead. And those hauntings, they can be difficult, but many times, if you go about the right way, if you call, a lot of it's calming the living down to stop freaking out so much, because that upsets the energy around them as well. But many times they will, and it takes a while sometimes, but many times they will move on.
Is it on their own fruition? Or
Yeah.
do ghosts like that or spirits like that, when they finally realize that they have unalived themselves, whatever it may be, okay, and it finally kicks in that they are now dead. Do they go through like a depression, anxiety, and anger, or whatever it may be?
Yeah, I guess you can call it that. I mean, it's not like the living, but I mean, I guess the realization is kind of kind of startling to them. But other situations as well. Many times they want to stick around because of someone they don't feel like leaving. They feel like they got to stick around for one of the living because, they took care of them during a life, and they just don't feel that they can move on. And that happens on occasion. There are various reasons, it's difficult to really explain communication with a spirit, or communication with what I call them energy, more than anything else. Somebody mentioned residual haunting. Residual haunting is just not, there's just nothing, any basis for any real energy other than the residual energy from the being itself. It's almost like a recording. It just keeps on going and going. And like in places like Gettysburg, that's what that is most of the time. It's just like a recording. But actual hauntings where, you're talking about an energy that's active and just doesn't do the same thing all the time. Yeah, I mean, that's normally what you get called into. And, a lot of times when the person in the house or the location, they a lot of times they just make it worse by freaking out. And they're usually the first thing you've got to take care of. You got to sit down and explain to them what's really going on after you figure out what's going on. It takes a while sometimes. I do remote viewing, and we go through a procedure when we do that, especially when there's several of you working together. And in fact, we use the remote viewing for cases just like I'm doing now with most cryptids. There's a lady who I used to work with. I still work with her, but we used to do cases together. She lives in Australia, and she's got her own team. And many of the new cases that I get, she'll normally tell me what's going on through just picking up on things before I even have an idea what's going on. But she's got a pretty good sized team, and she teaches as well. So it's a tool. I mean, it's just like anything else. Some people use electronics, some people use EVPs, some people use other things. We tend to use RV and other means, intuitive abilities as well. And as long as it keeps working, I'm going to keep on using it. But it's just not for hauntings. We use it for cryptids also.
Speaking of cryptids, you're somebody who gets a lot of cryptid reports weekly, monthly, yearly. A lot of them are about creatures that we recognize: Bigfoot, dogman, Mothman. Have you had any weird ones pop up lately?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what you call weird. I mean, we get a variety of different humanoid type of sightings. I mean, the biggest thing at this point is these pale crawlers or pale crawler humanoids, what people call them. I'm not talking about the creepypasta stuff. I'm talking about actual sightings of these pale humanoids. Many times they're very emaciated, very pale in color, no hair. Many times they don't even have features on their face. They move around in different ways. They do crawling. Sometimes they're on two legs. They're bipedal. But and I even wrote a book about it. So it's a newer type of phenomena, though. I think it's something that's been around for a while. And I had talked about you. And the next show I'll go ahead and talk about the Penelope sightings. I mentioned to you once before. But I'll get that to you, and we'll do those the next time. But it's something that's becoming more prevalent, and we're getting more reports about it. And it's just like a lot of other stuff. We have no idea what it is and where it's coming from. Are they alien? Are they earthbound? Are they some type of manifestation of some type? We really don't know. But people are seeing them, they're reporting them. And I think the reason why they're more prevalent now is that the paranormal world is just more open now. People see it on TV. People aren't afraid to talk about it. Everywhere you go, it's mainstream now. So, but of course, when something new pops up, of course, you're going to get a little bit of hesitation about it. But I think the crawlers are probably the most unusual at this point. We've been getting a lot of little people sightings too. Fae, Duende, whole lot of sightings down in Latin America and to Mexico. Not necessarily cases I work on, but cases I've been told about and things that I look into, But of course, that's part of the culture down there. And but that's becoming more prevalent now. People are coming forward down there and going to investigators. I've been lucky enough to have some contacts in Latin America with investigators down there. So yeah, it's surprising all the different things people see. But all in all, I think the humanoids, these humanoids are they're fascinating.
how come there are certain creatures out there that we just don't seem to hear of? Like Dirty Filth loves drawing the night crawlers.
Mm-hmm.
We don't hear a lot of those stories anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We don't hear a lot of goatman stories or frogman stories or even puckwudgie stories or anything like that. Do these cryptids just disappear for periods of time before coming back with a vengeance with a bunch of sightings?
Well, look at Chicago. That's a perfect example. We'd get a Mothman sighting here or there, but when you get 160 sightings in an area that for the most part is an urban area, a residential area, that's different. And but you're talking about some of these like puckwudgies or other, the night crawlers. If people do not report it, we're just not going to know about it. They see something like that, if they don't have no idea what it was, many times they're just going to think they saw, it was their imagination, and they're not going to report it. But occasionally we get lucky enough to get a report that we can look into. But some of this phenomena is just few and far between.
Is there a creature out there that you would love to see more reports on? I know that sounds real basic,
Yeah.
but like the night crawlers absolutely enthrall me. I could hear about night crawler stories. I mean, first off, explain to people what the night crawlers are.
Well, they're almost. If you wanted to talk about what they look like, they kind of look like big walking pants. They got long legs. They're normally pale in color. They've got a very top-heavy body. Those people who have seen eyes on them, they're kind of inset on the body like the original Mothman was, but they don't have arms for the most part. And I have heard people talk about arms, but they seem to walk with these really long legs, and it's just like a big pair of walking pants. And most times they're seen in multiples. When the first sightings started out in the Fresno area, they were seen 1 or 2 times out there, and it kind of picked up. Now there have been sightings other places, but quite frankly, I really don't know how that a lot of those could be proven as actual sightings. It's just something that got into the vernacular, and anytime somebody sees something unusual like that, it's a night crawler. So I don't know what they are. Are they alien? We don't know.
See, I always worry about that because I don't know how I would react to seeing a couple sets of MC Hammer pants covering up stilts walking towards me. Like all of a sudden, do they hit the ghetto blaster that says "Can't touch the do 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 do"?
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't say that just to make fun, even though I am making fun of it. But I mean, these things are just so off the map, that even you wouldn't make something up like that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Yeah, I mean, there are instances where people made things up. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, but I think for the most part, the genesis or the nexus of that Fresno Nightcrawler thing was real. I mean, I've looked at the video, and there were some pictures of some in a yard in the Fresno area, then in a park and a few other places. But with that evidence, we really still have no idea what they're dealing with. They just seem to show up here and there, and is it something that's mostly seen in the West Coast? I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah, it's just like a lot of other stuff. There's a lot of weird stuff out there that we just really have no explanation for, and we do with what we can.
Outside of the Fresno night walkers or night crawlers, has there been other sightings of these creatures?
I seem to remember there was something similar seen around the Toronto area a while back. But I don't know if that was real or if that was manipulated somehow. I had heard about it. I saw a picture of one. I will tell you, the area around Toronto has got a lot of weird stuff. I've got some weird things that have happened around that area for years. But
for our Toronto listeners, could you maybe explain some of them?
Well, I mean, a lot of cases with shadow figures, a lot of weird hauntings, attachments.
I think they call that Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews.
And a lot of we do get a fair amount of cryptid canine reports in Southern Ontario up into Toronto and above that. I have had some pretty interesting cryptid canine reports in the Niagara area, the whole way around the lake up into St. Catharines and up into Toronto. A lot of UFO sightings associated with Lake Ontario. All around the lake, we got a lot of weird stuff. So that whole region is pretty active.
How about sea monsters in the Great Lakes? How come we don't hear a lot about those?
No, you really don't. I guess the closest area, I mean, there's some smaller lakes up in Wisconsin, and of course, Lake Champlain's got supposed lake monster there. Every once in a while, we'll get something up in Quebec, many times associated with the St. Lawrence Seaway. I think a lot of that is beluga whales. People see those and freak out. But somebody mentioned sturgeon. Yeah, there's a lot of sturgeon sightings that are just misidentified. But we occasionally get a lake or supposed sea monster sighting.
I always think of the Gordon Lightfoot song about the wreck of the Edmund
Fitzgerald, yeah.
with the Witch of November, and her strong winds bringing gale force plus winds, almost hurricane-like winds to take down ships and everything. Plus, there was that famous battle over one of the Great Lakes with a UFO where the American fighter jet in the 50s or 60s didn't make out too well there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lake Michigan has a lot of lost aircraft as well, and ships and such. And you hear about a lot of that. Hell, I even had people telling me about reptilians showing up around Lake Michigan years ago. I never really, there was no really any proof. But I mean, there's a lot of lore around there, but around the Great Lakes, but it's mostly to do with lost ships and maybe a plane or two. But are people seeing USOs, a lot of lights in the water? That happens a fair amount in Lake Michigan, the Michigan Triangle area, which extends over most of the lake. But a lot of UFO activity too. And you talk about Chicago. Chicago is well known for UFO activity. There's a lot of weird stuff been seen over many decades.
I just don't get the high weirdness around those lakes. I mean, plus on either side, both on the Ontario side and on the Michigan side, that's Wisconsin. That's where you get a lot of dogman sightings as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that upper Midwest is just active. Of course, we got what we're looking into. And of course, you got the cryptid canines and you get pterosaurs and a lot of different hauntings. And yeah, it's just a lot going on. Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin are pretty active.
How come Indiana always seems to get no publicity while the other states do?
Oh, I don't know why, but we get a lot of reports out of Indiana. I'll be honest, I consider Indiana as really a top flight paranormal state. I mean, as far as sightings and such, it's in my top 5 in the United States. Top to bottom.
What goes on there?
Everything. I mean, Mothman sightings, UFO sightings, cryptid canines, definitely Bigfoot, especially down the southern part. A lot of really weird hauntings. A lot of stories too. I mean, there's a lot of lore, a lot of paranormal lore associated with Indiana. And I think a lot of that has to do with when, it's the Indian Territory, and there's just a lot of settlers killed and stuff, and people used to, talk about hauntings because of that, and because the indigenous people living there. But Indiana has a lot of energy, a lot of held energy. I had driven through Indiana last year when we were out in Chicago, and you can almost I could feel the energy just driving through there. I really could. It was palpable. It really was. But I'd say I get maybe 15-20% of my sightings come out of Indiana.
Really?
There's certain states that hold a lot of different phenomena. Indiana, Wisconsin, Texas, Pennsylvania, of course up your area up into Washington, Oregon, of course with the Bigfoot in Northern California. But all in all, Florida, a lot of UFO, of course, skunk ape and all that. But certain states hold a lot of different phenomena.
Why do you think that is? Why does it happen in certain states rather than others?
Well, like I said before, I think because of the history of the area, the energy it holds, the geography, the geology. It just seems that certain areas hold certain energy, and when things manifest, then it does happen if you get the right combination. That where it just shows up. I mean, Indiana's like that. I was kind of, when I started doing all this, and more so in the past 25 years, Indiana has really gone close to the top.
We got about a minute and a bit to go here before we have to go to break. At the top of the hour, Lon Strickler and Strange Days is here. Lon, out of all the topics you have written about in your books, not on your website, phantomsandmonsters.com, in your books, what's a topic that you would love to delve deeply into? And just
what I'm doing now with the whole winged humanoid phenomenon. I mean, there's just nothing. I've written 2 books about that, and we still have no idea what's going on. And in my case, I'm going to stick with it till I either get an answer or drop dead, one of the two. But there's just something really going on that we just don't know about. And sure, most of what we get is anecdotal evidence from witnesses, but quite frankly, if you talk to those witnesses, something happened. Something definitely happened, and that would be it. That I could write 2 more books about what's going on up there.
Gee whiz. All right, Lon, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because when we return on Spaced Out Radio for hour number 2, we're going to get into some of Lon's stories from phantomsandmonsters.com. We'll get to audience questions as well. Stay tuned. Second hour of Spaced Out Radio coming up right after this. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, let's check out what Dirty Filth has going on here. It's all yours, Dirty, and thanks for throwing in the shark fid, buddy.
Well, there's always room for sharks, Dave.
You never want to go in there with sharks.
Watch out, there's a shark right behind you. Ooh, I made some delicious lemonade and it's really sour.
You see where they're seeing great whites up in Cape Cod this year?
Yeah, I heard something about that. I was kind of...
Yeah, they had to close. They had to close a beach up there for Memorial this past weekend.
Yeah, those things can get pretty big.
Well, I'm lucky. They had a whale. They had a picture of a whale that got a chunk taken out of it from a great white, and a couple seals got nailed. And apparently they were getting close to shore, and one of the beaches closed up. Now I don't know which beach it was, but I do know it was on Cape Cod. So
yeah, I definitely don't want to be, excuse me, swimming around with a bunch of sharks.
No, I draw the line with sharks.
I'd rather have something like a cougar jump on my back and like break my neck and instantly kill me than be like bit by a shark and flail around in the water and drown slightly. And I'm not sure if sharks are like bears, will just eat part of you and then get all bored and wander away or not. So it doesn't sound fun at all.
I normally, when a shark gets you, the draw bloods drives the other ones to come in, so they're pretty well take care of you, I think. Yeah, bear will mess with you.
That's why I live in the flatlands of Alberta. But we get a lot of big lakes and stuff, but no sharks. So I'm okay with that. Bermuda shorts, yeah. Oh, hold on a second here.
Relax and accept the wedgie.
Yeah, you just gotta allow the wedge to happen. Poor little Nightcrawler's like, I'm just gonna wear shorts with no wedge. I've always wanted to go swimming and get one of those shark fins to wear on my back, but
oh shit,
it kind of defeats the purpose in like a public swimming pool, and then all the lakes around Alberta are basically just a slough, so nobody's gonna believe there's a shark there. But I've been swimming in the ocean before, and I'm a pretty good swimmer. However, the current is really awkward because it pulls you back a little bit and you swim forward, and it pulls you back and you don't seem to have gone as far as you hope you've gone.
Yeah, I was a kid. I got caught in a rip current down in Ocean City one time. Thankfully, it was not a strong one, but that thing pulled me out about 50 foot.
Yeah, when I lived in Vancouver, I went out swimming there a couple times in the water, and they got a little area set off where they have a net kind of thing. So I wasn't totally doomed, but it was quite different than swimming in a lake or in a pool or something. So I wasn't a big fan of that, and I thought, I don't think I'm cut out for this. I'm not a beach guy of any sort, so I guess if you live near the ocean and you're in it all the time, you're a little bit different, but flatlanders and stuff, just it's not very fun. Toss me in the water and flail around. Could be worse. I mean, maybe a squid or something, or jellyfish could get you. That wouldn't be very fun. Seen videos of guys picking up big jellyfish, and then a couple seconds later they get all scratchy and they're freaking out. And I don't know, why would you even touch something like that? It's like a giant ball of phlegm floating around in the water.
Yeah, I'm not partial to jellyfish. They're nice to see in the aquarium, but other than that, I stay away from them.
I used to see them when I'd take the sea bus across from the North Shore to the actual Vancouver itself. They'd be floating around in the water down there, and it's called the Key, where the sea bus goes. And you also get to see the giant rats that are down there. They're just these like big, ugly rats. They're sitting around there than jelly. So you'd never think to see like a big, goofy looking rat and a jellyfish together. That's weird. And their squirrels in Vancouver are basically small cats.
Oh, yeah. Vancouver.
What are they eating?
I don't know. Hey, Blue Cruise, how you doing? Ozzy, good to see you. Who else has hopped in here? CS, nice to have you here. All right. We're caught up on people. Beautiful piece of art tonight, Filth.
Thanks, Dave. Have a good night, gentlemen. I gotta
You too,
scan
buddy.
some artwork.
All right, you take care, buddy.
Talk to you later.
Gotta love the dirty filth, Lon.
Mm-hmm.
Magnolia, how you doing tonight? How you doing? All right, big thank you to Deb Rooney for being our lone super chatter tonight. Very much appreciated. Richard Minnick, how you doing? Good to see you. Don't forget you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. Here we go with hour number 2, everyone. Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America. We sure do appreciate your listening ears each and every night right here on the show. And our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Tardiloquent. Tardiloquent is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, once again, spacedoutradio.com. You can follow us on social media at Spaced Out Radio on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go with Lon Strickler. Strange Days continues on here as we are hanging on out, doing our thing. Lon, thank you so much for being here tonight. We always appreciate you coming on in.
I always enjoy coming on.
I know you do. That's why you continue to do this.
Yes, I do.
You don't have to, but I think it's because you love to show off that great hair and beard combination for our YouTube audience. That's what I think.
That's got to be it.
All right, let's get to one of your stories at phantomsandmonsters.com that we'll get your reaction to. Hi, Lon. Okay. I can't believe I found this. I was at a convention in Chicago in 2016. I saw the Chicago Mothman from my hotel window. I tried to take photos and still have them. I'm not a nut. I'm a union official for the U.S. Postal Service and was attending our convention. I would be glad to send you what I have. Please contact me. My name is Joe Palau. I live in Brooklyn, New York. And then you put a note in here. After you contacted Joe, you were told that he would go on the record by allowing you, to publish his name and offer other personal information. And you truly appreciated his willingness to give his testimony. And the testimony from Joseph Palau was he was MPMH, Union Shop Steward at World Trade Center 9/11 survivor, who was representing his local union and attending the 2016 National Convention, which is scheduled to take place at the Fairmont Millennium Park Hotel in Chicago, Illinois, during the week of August 22nd, 2016. He was staying at the same hotel located at 200 North Columbus Drive. During the first night of Joe's stay, he received a telephone call from a hospital in New York City informing him that his mother was rushed to the emergency room. He was told that he would be kept updated during the night, so he decided to stay awake. Very soon after he got off the telephone with the hospital, he looked out of his hotel room window, which was located on the east side of the building on the 8th floor. He observed a large black object at window level, gliding over North Columbus Drive, between the east side of the hotel and the building across the street. His first thought was that it was a black garbage bag, though soon realized that the altitude of this object was much higher than a garbage bag would typically be seen. Then he imagined that it was an oversized kite or drone, but it was at nighttime, and that was probably not the correct identification. As he continued to watch the object, it became apparent to Joe that this was clearly a dark-colored, 6-foot-long humanoid with wide wings that was slowly gliding to the left of his room. He also observed the winged humanoid seemed to be watching a window on the building across the street, northeast of his hotel, the Radisson Blue Aqua Hotel. He continued to watch the winged humanoid for several minutes as it continued gliding back and forth between the building. He also noted that he never saw any flapping of the wings, and that the winged humanoid continued to glide at different altitudes, constantly watching the building on the east side of the street. He also noted that the street and building were well lit, even at that altitude, and that the winged creature was fully visible, though he couldn't distinguish any fine details, including the eyes or the makeup of the wing structure. Then, suddenly, as the creature flew by his window, heading south on North Columbus Drive, the winged humanoid vanished. Joe remained vigilant, hoping to get another look at the winged entity, but never saw it again. For almost 7.5 years, he kept this encounter private until he recently heard Lon on a podcast interview describing the Chicago Mothman in the Chicagoland region. He had never heard of the phenomena until he heard the podcast. He immediately contacted Lon. You said, I conducted an investigation or an extensive interview with Joe and found him to be quite articulate and forthright. He stated that he has never believed in the paranormal and cryptids, but that he is now convinced that this winged humanoid actually exists. He also stated that he believed that this was an interdimensional being with supernatural abilities by evidence of what he observed that night. And he caught a couple of photos. There's one photo, Lon, of it looks like a bright spotlight. I don't know what is supposed to be in there.
What happened was he was trying to take a photograph inside his hotel room, and the flash was bouncing off the window. He couldn't get a photograph of it.
Right. Okay. And then he took a picture of the hotel he was staying at.
Yeah.
And so let's learn about this sighting here. What happened? What's your thoughts?
Well, from what I gathered from him, even though that was 7.5 years ago, he didn't really realize what was going on until, of course, he heard about it, and he heard me on a podcast describing what was going on. He had never heard of the phenomena before, and he decided that he was going to come forward and tell us about it. And he talked to Tobias as well. So we both talked to him. And very forthright, very rarely somebody comes in and allows us to use their name. That just very rarely happens. I've only had 5 or 6 witnesses do that. And, I did look at the area. I went in and looked around on Google Maps and Google Earth and looked at the area where he was describing exactly what he said. With the building and the way the thing was situated on Columbus Drive and the building across the street and everything. So it was one of those happenstance things. But I'm glad he contacted me because it's just another piece of the puzzle. And it's we don't get a whole lot of sightings downtown. Reported of us from downtown anymore. Most of them are outside of out of downtown or in the suburbs or either to neighboring states. But of course, this was 7.5 years ago, and great witness.
The fact that this thing never flapped its wings, that it was just gliding like an eagle, I found that very interesting. What was your thoughts?
That's something we get a lot. Many times people will look at it and it almost looks like a drone flying until they see it try to fly on its side, or it'll flap one time, or the head will move, or something else, and it'll do some type of aeronautic impossibility that a drone couldn't do. And of course, this thing is huge. I'm 6 foot long. He told me the wingspan, he couldn't really tell what the wingspan was. They said it was twice the body length. So, it was dark, and, he really couldn't get any features. But, I think he actually saw something.
The idea that he couldn't make out any facial features or structure in the body, that I think is completely understandable with the tinted windows in a hotel room, it being at night. I think that is completely logical. What did you find logical about the story?
Oh, just all of it. I mean, the way he came about, the way he described it. The thing about with his mother, and then him being awake and the whole night and all of that. It's just the little particulars that just kind of put the whole story together. And it was an extraordinary sighting. It really was. I mean, I'm glad it came forward. I really am, because many times we don't get a quarter of that information from a witness. It's such a fleeting sighting many times that people just don't get any particulars. There's no really story behind it. And this guy had it all. It wasn't like it was contrived. He had real reasoning, and he was very, when he did the interview, he was very forthright about it. He was telling me about, he's a 9/11 survivor. He worked at the post office at the World Trade Center when it came down. So he was, it fell right down on top of him if he wouldn't have got out of there, because he was in the annex, the post office annex of one of the buildings, one of the towers.
Holy cow. That's a little too close for comfort.
Yeah.
Way too close for comfort. Do you think, okay, here's one of the things that I look at with the Mothman. I'm curious your thoughts on this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that, once again, in this case, the Mothman was a harbinger of bad news? Because
I don't think so.
His mother was sick, rushed to the hospital?
Coincidence maybe, but I don't think, that whole harbinger thing, it's good for a story. But all in all, with all the sightings that we have had in Chicago, the ones that we thought were legit, let's put it that way, because we've had other sightings that we just didn't cut the mustard. But out of those 160 sightings, I can't really take one of them and connect it with any type of disaster or anything that happened to the witness itself.
But either way, even if you go back to the West Virginia sightings.
Yeah. I don't, like I said before, with the Silver Bridge collapse, all this Mothman sightings and all the story had been going on for about a year already. People were aware of it. You got a little town where 46 people die in one night because a bridge collapses across the river. And somebody comes out and says, "Oh, I saw the Mothman above it." So it must have been a harbinger of the bridge collapse. Okay. Well, there's no real proof of that other than somebody saying that they said they saw it. Or maybe somebody connecting all the sightings that year being connected to that bridge collapse. Like I've said before, John Keel took that story and ran with it. I mean, he was a journalist. So it made the Mothman prophecies a very interesting story as being part of it, along with the Men in Black and all the UFO activity and all the other stuff that happened in and around Point Pleasant that year and after the bridge collapsed. But I just don't really believe that, even though I've had accounts from people that it could have been a harbinger, if you would believe it, but there's just really no proof of it. I had people ask about it all the time, and I thought in the beginning there may be some connection, but as I've gone and investigated this more and more and other sightings of winged humanoids, I just can't really say that there is a connection there.
All right, let's get to a second story here from you as we continue on with Lon Strickler and Strange Days. Another huge bat-winged humanoid, King County, Illinois. On April 29th of this year, a huge bat-winged humanoid was encountered by the witness. The same witness had 2 previous experiences with the same creature in 2023. The 3 incidents were within a 20-mile radius. I received the following, I being you, Lon, received the following account after responding to a comment on the Phantoms and Monsters radio YouTube channel. Hi there. First of all, thank you for responding so quickly. It's been a rough day, and honestly, I don't know what to make of it. My name is Matt Sexton. I'm fairly skeptical and usually think there is a logical explanation, but I cannot find one for my experiences. It started about a year ago on Route 30 near Hinckley, Illinois, DeKalb County. I can give you the exact locations if you'd like, but it's all the same. I'd say a 20-mile radius. I drive a truck for a living, and you see some strange things on the road, but that night, it was something extraordinary. Around 1:30 a.m., a large branch fell from a tree and caught my attention. When I looked up and I saw it, it was huge, humanoid covered in mouse brown fur. It had clawed feet and webbing between its legs. The bat-like wings were semi-separated arms from the wings, or maybe it was just close together. It had an elongated face. It swooped down in front of my truck, and it was gone. I thought, well, that could have been a crane or a large bird or anything other than what I saw. The second time I saw it was a few miles away, about a month later, around the same time at night on Route 39. It looked exactly the same, but now I could tell the height. When it flew across the road, its feet could reach the fog line on the right and the middle lanes, about 10 feet. So it's at least 10 feet tall at least. Again, I tried to justify it by any means necessary. Maybe it was a bird that was closer than I thought. Maybe it was a bag floating across the road. Like anything literally but that. But again, the wings and body were well defined. I let it go thinking, nah, couldn't be that. I'm missing something. It's just not that. After what happened today, which was less than a month ago on April 29th, I can't ignore or deny something is going on. I'm a big boy, right? Like I'm a father, a husband. I'm 6 feet 4 inches tall and weigh 300 pounds. I don't get scared easily. Well, I'm terrified. I'm honest to God shaken to my core. It's uncomfortable and I hate this. I do not want this to be real, but here it goes. When I was going to work today on McGurr Road near Caneville, Illinois, there is a small bridge that goes over a creek. When my front tires crossed over, something either came from under the bridge or swooped from my right side and must have hit my bumper. I reacted and I swerved to the oncoming lane and almost lost control of my vehicle. I got a very good look at it. It was the same thing I saw a year earlier. I corrected, and before I could realize what was happening, it came down again over my hood from my right to my left, and I saw it in the air. It was literally the most horrifying thing. Oh my goodness. It was literally the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my life. It came down once more over or on the roof of my car. At that point, I hit the gas and pulled my firearm. I got up to about 110 miles per hour, and it was able to keep up and over my hood one more time. Again, it was flying maybe 30 yards above me and to my left. I started firing because I was in fear for my life. The first time I truly felt so threatened that firing my weapon was the best option, which in all honesty, I'm not very proud of. I don't say this to embellish or heighten the theatrics. I say it to show how god-awful and horrifying it was to me and how I felt. I had no recourse. I shot 12 rounds. By the 7th or 8th, it wrapped itself in its wings and started descending. I followed it down with 4 more rounds, and it was gone. I'm still shaking and really distraught. I'm truly upset, and it makes me feel, well, weak and scared. I don't care how you use this story. I'm perfectly willing to discuss what happened at any length you'd want to talk about this, because I can't deny it was something I can't explain away. I desperately want to thank you for your quick response and for letting me share with you, Matt Sexton. And you show some pictures on the vehicle of where it hit the vehicle coming off the bridge and where I believe on the roof that it may have been standing, Lon.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, another great sighting just west of Chicago, in DeKalb County. Another very believable witness, and Tobias talked to him as well. And I called him and went over the whole encounter in detail. The fact that he saw this thing 3 times and that it caused damage on a car, and he fired 12 pistol rounds at it, that made it very unique. But now the location, the last sighting was in Pierce Township, Illinois, at Battle Creek, which is approximately 1,500 foot east of Hickley Road. So, yeah, it was within a 20-mile radius, all 3 sightings. And, yeah, it's just an extraordinary sighting. Gives me hope that this thing is going to continue to haunt us for a while yet. But that has to be one of the more dramatic sightings that we have had. And of course, it was just less than a month ago. So Mothman lives in Chicago.
This one seems to be a little bit more aggressive than the others. Do you think this is a different creature, or do you think it's the same one? What is your thoughts?
I think they all come from the same place. The mouse hair fur thing is not uncommon. Most times they're smooth bodied, but we have had several sightings where somebody did mention that it was brownish in color and it looked like it had mouse hair all over the body. And that's not the only time it's happened. And in fact, we had 2 truck drivers who said the same thing in southwest Chicago. So it's almost in the same direction this place was. I don't know if it's the same creature or not. But again, I think these are interdimensional beings. I think they come from the same place. I think they may have races, just like, they look different or they show themselves different to us.
Right.
And there's more than one. There's many of them. And this one did seem somewhat aggressive. And the fact that he saw it 3 times, the first thing we got to be thinking is, well, maybe our theory about these creatures allowing certain people to see them, maybe this thing's been following him.
I don't know. Lon, I'm going to get you to hold on right there.
Okay.
Because it is that time. We got Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com for another half an hour here on Spaced Out Radio as Lon comes in once a month to talk all things mysterious about Mothman, Bigfoot, paranormal, and so much more. He's one of the best when it comes down to it, and that's why we love having him here on Spaced Out Radio. We will return right after this.
You're
listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, we're clear, my man. Good times.
Yeah.
Good times.
He was talking about pod. I think he actually listened to me on your show.
Could have been.
I think he did. I think he did.
Maybe. Reach on out. If you're listening, reach on out. It's kind of cool. You never really know. You never really know who's listening.
You don't. You don't.
You know, I remember when, this is going a few years back now, when I had Jody Cook on from the North American Dogman Project on.
Mm-hmm.
And we had it that night. We had two members of the military, one from the Army and one from the Air Force, who shortly after that show contacted him on email to tell these incredible stories of Anubis-like creatures, one in Afghanistan and one down in Brazil.
Yeah, I've gotten stories of those canine creatures out in Afghanistan. They do describe them as jackal-looking, like Anubis jackals.
Yeah.
So
with the giant curved swords.
Yeah. Oh, swords? These things had swords?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, apparently the one soldier who was on duty, he was in a troop that was doing patrol for Taliban members, and there were only a couple of them moving up to kind of see what was around the corner, and they heard these Afghanis yelling and screaming, and they went behind this big rock, and that's where they watched these two Anubis like 8-foot dogs walk up on them and just start slashing him. He said the one guy got slashed like right from shoulder to hip. Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a new one to me.
Very weird.
Yeah, I get a lot of response from doing shows. I really do. I've gotten several stories from your after doing your show over the years.
Oh, wonderful.
Huh?
Wonderful. That's
Oh,
awesome.
Yep.
I love that. Love that. Makes it more fun.
Yep. Keeps me busy.
Well, I mean, you get to do what you love, my man. Not
Yeah.
many people get to do that. We're all envious.
Well, it has its limitations sometimes, but I'm not bitching about it. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't do it.
I hear you.
Probably hear more crazy shit than I want to hear, but
right.
Oh my God. Some of it, I mean, literally some of it I do not even post. Seriously. There have been times when I've gotten something that I just went a little bit across the line above, I just couldn't post it. Not that I didn't believe it, but it was just a little beyond, even, and of course, a lot of times I don't want to edit it because it just takes so much away from it. But there have been some weird ones.
We got about 35 seconds here. Big thank you to Deborah Rooney, being our lone super chatter of the night. Thank you very, very much. We muchly appreciate it. And of course, you can always shop at our store on our website, get some really cool swag. We've got some really good stuff up there. If you haven't went and checked it out, just hit shop on our website. It'll take you right there. Don't forget, you can get Lon's books at phantomsandmonsters.com.
And we will be talking about Mothman Friday night.
Cool. Here we go, my man. Here we go, the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate you tuning us on a nightly basis. Reminder to all of you that if you have missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives. They're always free. You can go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio or listen on any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com is here for Strange Days. We are hanging on out, talking about the monsters among us. Lon, it's always good to have you here.
Great to be here, Dave.
Thank you for joining us. We're going to start off with some audience questions here.
Okay.
And Mara is asking, do you think it was more of a cry for aid? This goes back to when I was telling you the story about the spirit that possessed one of my tour guests at the museum. What do you think, Lon? Do you think it may have been
it may have been, but I think a lot of times, and from my experiences, they're looking for attention. They want to tell you their story. Seriously. For whatever reason, they want to communicate and tell you what happened to them or ask you what happened to them. And yeah, they're very curious. That is mostly the basis for a haunting. When they're trying to find out what happened, where they are, what's going on. And when they do recognize someone who has abilities, they will keep at it.
All right, let's move on
That's
to Castle.
and let me say one more thing.
Please.
Many times when there is a haunting, a lot of times the people who are being haunted are intuitive or has abilities. And these spirits can recognize that.
Okay. Let us go to Castle Dude over in the UK. Good morning to you. Why is the veil thinner at night?
Less distractions, people notice more. It's not that there's more going on at night. It's just that there's less distractions and people are more aware in the night, and things are quieted down, and when there's activity, it's seen. I've had things happen 24/7. It's just not necessarily at night, but people do notice it more at night.
Okay, and let me ask you this then. Does it have anything to potentially do with the fact that, there's a lot of frequencies that are turned off from televisions? People aren't watching television. Most people aren't up at 2, 3 in the morning. All right. Most people don't have their radios going, or they're not playing on their cell phones at that time.
Yeah. There's just less distraction, either natural or electronic or, yeah.
It's that simple?
It's that simple.
All right. I can accept that. Dizzy wants to know, Lon, do you notice an uptick in sightings or hauntings during solar windstorms?
I haven't really considered that. I don't know. It might be, but I really don't have any proof of that or anywhere I can actually go to and figure that out. I mean, if they have any examples, I'd love to see them. They can always send it to me. But yeah, I can't really make a distinction offhand.
What about other weather phenomena? I've noticed around here that during lightning storms, if we're at the
Mhm.
museum, there's a lightning storm going around, that
Mhm.
seems to be a real uptick in energy.
Well, there is a theory that ozone will increase activity. That may be an explanation. Now, I have heard many times of phenomena being seen during tornadoes. Is it to change the barometric pressure or just maybe there is something to that. But yeah, I guess it very well could be.
I always wondered about that.
Yeah.
I always wondered about that. All right, let's go over to Cosmic Joe. Lon, I am located in Halethorpe in Baltimore County, Maryland. Where are the dogman sightings located?
North of you, you're just south. You're southwest of Baltimore, so and I know the area well because I lived there 40 years. But the dogman sightings for the most part have been north of there, up into Frederick County and northern Baltimore County and over in Cecil County. So it's north of Baltimore, northwest of Baltimore, and northeast of Baltimore.
All right, we appreciate the questions from our audience so far. Lon, I want to ask you about one of your favorites to chase, and that's Bigfoot, Dogman.
Mm-hmm.
Both creatures. When you find an area where there is a lot of sightings or clues or activity from these creatures, and you go back the next year and you don't have anything, but they're still there. You can sense them around. You can hear them in the bushes. They're just not leaving anything for you. How often do you keep going back, or do you think that these creatures maybe move on to a different area annually?
Well, that's something me and Butch looked into a lot. Possible migrations. But I think if you have an area where there's a historical number of sightings, you got to keep going back there because there's a reason why people are seeing them there, reporting them. Not necessarily that they live there, but there's something there that attracts them. Butch and I did look into migration. Well, when we're talking about our area, Pennsylvania, down into Maryland and into West Virginia, and maybe into Southwest Virginia, that Bigfoot and the cryptid canines may actually move up and down the mountain ranges, up and down the Blue Ridge areas and down in the Appalachians. But if you do have a historically active area, you do definitely keep up with it. These cryptid canine sightings that we've been getting the past couple of years have been in historically active areas. So, it's something we're going to keep looking at.
Has there been any more of these bipedal canine sightings in Butch's area?
No, not since that sighting we had a year and a half ago up in French Creek. No. And
So
I've had people going in there, but no, we haven't gotten another sighting there.
Okay, so in a case like that, then,
Mm-hmm.
do we look at a case like that the creature has moved on to a different area? Maybe it's been spotted too much. Maybe it's already cleared out the area of food. I mean, what are the possibilities that we look at?
You can look at a lot of things. I mean, if it's a heavy concentration of people in there at certain times of year, yeah, they're not going to be there, or they're going to hide real well. If they're interdimensional, there's not really much you can do. I mean, they're moving in and out here and there. That area there in particular, I don't know if it would be beneficial to them to move out of there, because it's such a big area and there's a lot of area for it to hide. So it could very well still be there. It's just that nobody else has seen it. And we've had people in there. We've had people going in there. We got the guy who originally saw it. He's still investigating it and getting data. And he hasn't seen any other evidence of it being there. But that just doesn't necessarily mean it's gone. Since he's been so vigilant at it, I believe the guy saw something. And that area has been known for a lot of weird stuff. Anyway, Butch was in and out of there. He had cameras set up in there as well for years. So
they're probably some of them are probably still there.
Well, I don't think so. I think the ranger got him out. We did contact the ranger. He knew Butch, and he knew where Butch was putting him at. So, and he went back. He didn't find him. So somebody might have taken him, unless Butch took him out of there. I don't know. I don't know when the last time Butch wasn't feeling good for a while. So I don't know if Butch had gone in there and put any in there. Gary had him in there for years.
Gary would like to know, is there any hauntings or cryptid sightings in Iowa?
Yeah, we get a few here and there. Nothing major, mostly hauntings. I've done some cases in Iowa. Of course, I did the big case in Sioux City, which I worked on for almost a dozen years. I did a case in Des Moines not long afterwards. As far as cryptids go, every once in a while we'll get a Bigfoot. It's not really not a major area for Bigfoot activity, but I had done some haunting cases in Iowa.
Right on. Lon Strickler and Strange Days here on Spaced Out Radio. Lon, when we get to a lot of these sightings that people are having, is there a lot of residual energy that follows an encounter for people? Like they're going to have memory of this. They are going to be having a lot of shock value, maybe even a little PTSD over it, even though I think we overuse that term. But do you think they're going to be carrying residual energy from what happened?
Not necessarily residual energy, but I think they are more prone to thought form manifestation, creating tulpas as before they had the encounter. I have experienced that with clients before, where they had an encounter with a haunting, and because of it, they did seem to be able to generate maybe poltergeist activity unconsciously. But I think it does affect people. I think it does affect their mind, and to a degree. It's not necessarily residual. There is real energy there, but I think, the human mind's a crazy thing. Thought form manifestations are real phenomena. And it's not just the hauntings. It's also has to do with cryptids as well, where people mind manifest some type of being that just is not there. That's another thing with these. I was talking about these pale crawler humanoids. There are some instances, and I had talked about that in my book, where there's a possibility that they could have been mind manifestations, where somebody maybe read some type of creepypasta story about a rake, what they called the rake back then, or even the Slender Man, and mind manifested one of these beings. It's a real phenomenon. That's what a poltergeist is. It's a mind manifested entity.
Wow. Wow. Okay, let's get to a question from Tony. Not meaning to be derogatory to energies in the afterlife, but do you think their IQ has diminished some, hence them not knowing they are past? What's both your thoughts?
I wouldn't say there's any quotient there as far as IQ or actual brain thought, because they don't have brains anymore. I mean, they do have abilities. They do have energy that allows them, if it's strong enough, to move things. But there's enough there to where they become confused as to why they're in the state they're in. It's hard to describe. It really is. I mean, I'm not saying I can actually go and communicate with one of these energies. I can pick up bits and pieces. I can sense them trying to communicate with me, but I don't think there's really an IQ involved with that or any type of real brain power, because they just do not have that ability. I think it's just something part of their life force that remains with them. And I tell you, over the years, I have become more and more convinced that when somebody passes, and under the right circumstances, they will retain a life force with them.
See, I tend to think not a little, not much different from you, but I think that I think they're scared. I really do think that there is a fear there, and they're not listening to other spirits because maybe they've had loved ones pass on, and all of a sudden they're surrounded by them.
Yeah.
Or they're surrounded.
Well, they can't interact with other energies. There's just no doubt about that. I have seen it. Sometimes you'll get into a situation where they're being controlled by a stronger energy in their same location. That happens. But no, I think they do retain some life force. I think there is a memory area, something to do with memory there.
Yes.
But to what degree, I really don't know.
Yeah. I also believe, and I don't know how you believe in this, Lon, but I also believe that there is a real difference between someone who has some sort of spiritual or religious belief and those who are agnostic or atheist. I really think that I had a buddy of mine who passed away a few years ago, and I kind of remote viewed in on him after I found out, and he was in complete darkness. Complete darkness. Didn't know what to do, didn't know what was happening. And he was a big tough guy on this side. Okay, but he was actually a little bit shaking in his boots on the other side because he didn't know where he was, didn't know he died. And there was this black energy and these little black beings that were starting to surround him when I found him. What's your take on that?
Well, emotion and personality with the living does remain to a degree. So it doesn't surprise me that you're able to pick up on that. I think people who are very deeply involved with their faith or their belief are kind of prepositioned for when they pass. They're able to, I don't know, communicate beyond, from beyond. I think that can be a factor.
Could be.
I think it is. It's just so much that we just don't really know. We're kind of grasping at straws with this, but We just do the best we can and try to explain what we believe they're going through, just by that little bit of connection that they do give you. But that could go a lot of different ways. Quite frankly, it really could. All I can do is tell you what my experiences have been. So, yeah.
All right, let's move on to another question here from Susan. We got about 4 minutes, Lon. What is a tulpa?
Tulpa is a thought form. It's basically a mind manifested entity that a person can manifest unconsciously. They have no thought about what they're doing. The mind reaches out and forms one of these beings, these entities. In case of a cryptid, of a tape of maybe even open up an interdimensional doorway. It's been proven. The tulpa phenomena, the thought form phenomena, has been proven. And, for years, people thought that poltergeists were a haunting or of a real spirit being, but that just is not the case. As time has gone on, it turns out that a poltergeist is a mind manifested entity. It can gather strength, and many times it does. And it can mimic an actual spirit. But what it is something that is an unconscious manifestation.
Gotcha on that. All right, let's go to AC/DC 5150. So somebody likes AC/DC and Van Halen 5150, more of a Hagar fan. Lon, do you have any stories from Monk's Castle, Lamont, Illinois?
No, I don't. I saw that and I can't recall anything.
All right. Sorry about that.
Sorry about that.
Dizzy here. Could you please ask Lon, that's you, Lon, about the recent Fey folk encounters?
Recent Fey folk encounters?
Yes.
You mean cases I've looked into or cases I've received?
Well, let's talk about received.
Well, we've been called out on several cases that there may have been some type of Fey folk or some type of beings, little beings. There's one we've been working on just north of me here in Pennsylvania of a gentleman who's had a lot of weird stuff going on his property. Guy moved down here from New York City, actually, bought a property, been living here about 2 years. And there has been a manifestation of a cryptid canine on occasion that he and his daughter have experienced. But he's also talked about, and Chad, who's on my team, was with me when we went up there. He's talked about a dozen or so of these small beings. We don't know if they're Fey or what they are. One thing he did describe, they had shiny eyes. He could see them at nighttime, and they were down in the yard in a gully. And he said they got into the house at one point. They didn't do anything, but they were just been there making a lot of noise. I don't know what's going on with that place because the guy has had a lot of phenomena going on there. There's UFO sightings, and it's in an area where we've had Bigfoot, cryptid canine, and UFO sightings for years. So if it's something to do with the property itself and the region, that doesn't surprise me. But that's one we have been working on.
30 seconds to go, my friend, before we have to say goodnight to you. Where can people find your books and information?
Well, everything's on Amazon. Just search Lon Strickler. My books will come up. Those that are still in print. You can go to phantomsandmonsters.com where I do the daily blog, and go to Phantoms and Monsters Radio. We do a Friday night show, and we're going to be doing some members only question and answer shows as well in upcoming Wednesday nights. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Lon Strickler, everybody. Hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio is next.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, Lon, we're clear. Thank you, buddy. Always
Okay,
appreciate
thank you.
it. All right. You take care, and we'll talk next month, my man.
We'll do Penelope next month, unless something comes up.
Perfect. Love it. Take care, my
Okay.
friend.
Okay, bye-bye.
I'm going to take a quick break. When we return, Steve Stockton and Terry Hall and his incredible power stash next. right. I am back. Tracy Benna, how are you? Project Starlight, a.k.a. Terry Hall's mustache. How are you? Donna Latty, welcome to SOR Chat. Anthony, how you doing, my man? How's the tattoo business? Major Lee? Guess who's on holiday? Look at this crap. Guess who's on holidays for a week and who's having steak and eggs for breakfast? Well, you can have steak and eggs for breakfast because it's a breakfast meal. None of that breakfast for dinner BS that we have to argue about all the time. Good for you. Thank you tonight to Deb, CS, and ACDC for the super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support. Don't forget, my back is killing me. We got Spaced Out Radio Store on our website. Go to shop. We do not have ugly swag, people. Here we go. Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate you tuning us in each and every night here on the radio. Thank you very much. Hey, I want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives at youtube.com/spaced out radio. We're on every major podcast network as well. The Desert Clam is set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Tardiloquent. Tardiloquent is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It's that time of the night. Say hello to Steve Stockton as he brings us another weird story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. In the very olden time, there lived a semi-barbaric king whose ideas, though somewhat polished and sharpened by the progressiveness of distant Latin neighbors, were still large, florid, and untrammeled, as became the half of him which was barbaric. He was a man of exuberant fancy, and withal of an authority so irresistible that, at his will, he turned his varied fancies into facts. He was greatly given to self-communing, and when he and himself agreed upon anything, the thing was done. When every member of his domestic and political systems moved smoothly in its appointed course, his nature was bland and genial. But whenever there was a little hitch, and some of his orbs got out of their orbits, he was blander and more genial still, for nothing pleased him so much as to make the crooked straight and crush down uneven places. Among the borrowed notions by which his barbarism had become simified was that of the public arena, in which, by exhibitions of manly and beastly valor, the minds of his subjects were refined and cultured. But even here the exuberant and barbaric fancy asserted itself. The arena of the king was built not to give the people an opportunity of hearing the rhapsodies of dying gladiators, nor to enable them to view the inevitable conclusion of a conflict between religious opinions and hungry jaws, but for purposes far better adapted to widen and develop the mental energies of the people. This vast amphitheater, with its encircling galleries, its mysterious vaults, and its unseen passages, was an agent of poetic justice, in which crime was punished or virtue rewarded. by the decrees of an impartial and incorruptible chance. When a subject was accused of a crime of sufficient importance to interest the king, public notice was given that on an appointed day, the fate of the accused person will be decided in the king's arena, a structure which well deserved its name, for although its form and plan were borrowed from afar, its purpose emanated solely from the brain of this man, who, every barleycorn king, knew no tradition to which he owed more allegiance than pleased his fancy, and who engrafted on every adopted form of human thought and action the rich growth of his barbaric idealism. When all the people had assembled in the galleries, and the king, surrounded by his court, sat high upon his throne of royal state on one side of the arena, he gave a signal. A door beneath him opened, and the accused subject stepped out into the amphitheater. Directly opposite him, on the other side of the enclosed space, were two doors, exactly alike and side by side. It was the duty and the privilege of the person on trial to walk directly to these doors and open one of them. He could open either door he pleased. He was subject to no guidance or influence but that of the aforementioned impartial and incorruptible chance. If he opened the one, there came out of it a hungry tiger, the fiercest and most cruel that could be procured, which immediately sprang upon him and tore him to pieces as a punishment for his guilt. The moment that the case of the criminal was thus decided, doleful iron bells were clanged, great wails went up from the hired mourners posted on the outer rim of the arena, and the vast audience, with bowed heads and downcast hearts, wended slowly their homeward way, mourning greatly that one so young and fair, or so old and respected, should have merited so dire a fate. But if the accused person opened the other door, there came forth from it a lady, the most suitable to his years and station that his majesty could select among his fair subjects. And to this lady he was immediately married, a reward of his innocence. It mattered not that he might already possess a wife and family, or that his affections might be engaged upon a subject of his own selection. The king allowed no such subordinate arrangements to interfere with his great scheme of retribution and reward. The exercises, as in the other instance, took place immediately and in the arena. Another door opened beneath the king and a priest, followed by a band of singers and dancing maidens blowing joyous airs on golden horns and treading an epithalamic measure, advanced to where the pair stood side by side, and the wedding was promptly and cheerily solemnized. Then the gay brass bells rang forth their merry peals. The people shouted glad hurrahs, and the innocent man, preceded by children strewing flowers on his path, led his bride to his home.
All right. Thank you, Steve Stockton, for another great story. We do it every Monday through Friday night to kick off hour number 3. If you want more, head on over to youtube.com/spaced out, and make that Among the Missing to hear Steve's stories. From the missing to the mysterious, Terry Hall filling in on UFO Court.
That is an interplanetary flying space saucer. You have made me very angry. Very angry indeed.
Right on, Terry Hall here with his fabulous mustache. That is just a 10 out of 10. Terry, thank you so much for being here tonight. How you doing, buddy? We are not hearing you, my friend.
I'm doing great.
It's always good when you pull the microphone down on your
Well,
head.
yeah, you'd think that, right? I mean, that's all I do all day is talk on this silly thing. So you would almost think that I would remember to do that. How's
Right
Mr.
on.
Scott this evening?
You know what? I am good. I had a great birthday weekend and got so much love on social media and from our SOR fans and family, such as yourself. It was just very meaningful, very, very meaningful and humbling. That's for sure.
It's kind of as you get older, how much more you appreciate days like that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I loved it. I loved every moment of it. So, and I just finished off my ice cream cake today because that's tradition.
Oh,
That's
man.
one tradition that I have. I have to have a Dairy Queen ice cream cake.
What's funny, Dave, is the other property, the Trent property, right there on the corner is a Dairy Queen. And while we were doing the improvements, tenant improvements on the property, we were there probably 3 times a day, dude, because it was like right there on the corner, it was 10 steps away.
Really?
I got to be quite the Dairy Queen junkie. And so did my wife.
You know what? I wish it wasn't so expensive, but I absolutely love Dairy Queen ice cream.
Yeah, I
I do.
have since I was a kid. It's one of those things that hopefully it won't go away. Hopefully it won't go away.
Oh, hopefully never. Hopefully, never. And by the way, Faith First Apex in our chat room. What up, Terry? It's Brian and Pam. We are buying Starlight from you. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Starlight's his motorhome.
I just met those 2 wonderful people today, and you know how with the RV, how it's kind of tied in indirectly with the number 11, right?
Yes.
11 past the hour. Brian and Pam were the 11th people to contact me about that thing. We met today, and it just so happens that it was like one of those 3 degrees of separation thing. There's only been 1 degree all along the path that's kept us apart. But they're fantastic people and quite interesting. Quite interesting. I'll fill you in more about it later on. I kind of told you about it earlier, but just great people. And they're going to continue the adventure.
Right
They're
on.
our kind of people. So they're gonna take the old Starliner and keep her on the road and keep her on adventures for what we were doing with it originally. So it worked out great.
That's excellent. That's excellent. That's good karma right there. Good karma.
And I tell you what, Brian, he has a clothing line, and some of his clothes are just incredible. I just got a first look at them today. The swag's as good as yours, Dave. I swear.
No ugly swag.
No ugly swag. I swear.
Beautiful. Love it. Love it. Let's get into some UFO talk here because there's a lot going on X right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to get your opinion on this. This was posted by Jordan Crowder. He says, what if some UFOs are not flying here from other worlds, but rather sinking into our lower density like a submarine submerges into the sea? They come from other locus and Tellus as described in Hinduism. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that they are sinking on down to our earthly planet?
I've often that was one of the things that we really were trying to explore anyway. Is it's kind of novel to think that the next dimension's an atom away, right? And thinking of it in planes, a single plane and 2D and 3D. If it was the next, or maybe even the next or the next, you figure they would have to kind of settle into this somehow. Who was it? He wrote a whole paper on this, but it was how we see things is not the way it would be in 2D, because in 2D, if you're on a piece of paper and you're going towards one another in 2D, well, you're stuck unless you crawl over the next guy. 3D, you can walk around that person. Well, in 4D, for that to come here, do you think it would be like a portal situation, or that would you have to just kind of drop in? What do you think, Dave?
I don't know. This is one of the things that baffles me about how they're coming in, because there are certain areas on this planet where it's like a door opens to the sky and they fly in or out of them. I was talking to a couple First Nations people here a couple months ago, And they were telling me a story how they have these twin mountain peaks where for some reason they watch the UFOs just come in and out. And it's always in that same area of the mountain peaks. We hear of the province of Manitoba in British Columbia, where a lot of the eastern US sightings start off in Manitoba, like a door opens in the sky, and all of a sudden, poof, they're here and they are flying right through. We've heard about stories like that in Arizona as well, and Nevada, even Utah, around Skinwalker Ranch in Vernal, where we broadcast on 94X. Hi, Charlie. How you doing? Right? I mean, there's a lot of these portals that just seem to open up, and this is how they are getting in and potentially leaving. So I agree, there is something weird going on, but what it actually is or how they're getting here or whatever, does that have to do with something with the wormhole system that they are doing to bend the space-time continuum to get here? I don't know.
Well, it makes me wonder because in a lot of the old megalithic structures, there's huge doorways that are cut into nothing. It's like there's a doorway cut and it's into the side of a mountain, but it's like walking into a wall. There's a doorway, but it leads to nowhere. They said that back in the old days, there was something that would activate it and it would open, and it's what we would consider to be a wormhole from point A to point B or beyond. And
Weird.
we know that our ancients followed the ley line. So we learned about ley lines from the ancients and the points of power from the ancients. There's places you can go in the United States today that if you go through with a radio, it won't work because of the power there. The Uinta Basin, the reason it's called the basin is because it's shaped like a bowl. It's like this. And what they've discovered recently is there's enough gilsonite deposits underneath the Uinta Basin to where there's a lot of places that it reflects the energy back and it focuses it from the way that it's shaped. So and especially over Skinwalker Ranch, Skinwalker's got that bowl right in the middle of it, and it shapes things to a point. And at that point, at the apex of that point, is where a lot of the sightings are. So, our ancients didn't build things out of megalithic stone because it was the hardest thing they could do. They had a totally different kind of technology. They didn't use gas or petroleum like we do. So they figured something else out. And I think that we're just starting to learn about that now. So if there is that different kind of technology that led them to be able to travel without wheels, maybe that's why they didn't have the wheel, because they just didn't need it.
Right. Right. All right. Let's move on to another story here that's really, really taken off. Now, last week, Terry, we heard Lou Elizondo come out and basically say, confirm about his threats. It became a big topic of conversation where Elizondo has stated through his lawyer, Daniel Sheehan, that he has been threatened by certain people around his book coming out, whether they are in government or whether they are outside of government. It's not known at this time, but there has been threats to him, his family, about his book Imminent, which is due out in August. Now, today on X, Gary Nolan came out saying that he has actually been threatened as well, stating that he once received a phone call from a government official warning him to be careful about how he was talking about things being UFOs. Gary said it shook him. It was a threat. And, he understands what Elizondo is going through. And he says these threats are real. It's ongoing. And he's hoping it goes public. What do you think about this?
I've had conversations with Gary, and I got to tell you, he's probably one of the sweetest, most intelligent people you'll ever meet. And if we think back, was less than a year ago, they were supposed to have 40 whistleblowers come forward, right? It was 40. That was the number. Well, it seems like every time one of them steps forward, what happens? They get threatened. They get, and it's not just them. I mean, even the mafia had sense enough to leave families alone. It's all hands on deck here. Nobody's safe. Oh, why? I mean, why release the information that the government has released up to this point, even though, as we know, Lou had something to do with it for the big push here that we've all been experiencing? But why put it forward and then try to put it back in the bottle? Try to put the toothpaste back in the tube, as everybody says. It doesn't make any sense to me. So what are they trying so hard to hide? Oh, what is it, Dave? What do you think?
I think they're trying so hard to get the genie back in the bottle of the UFO story that they are willing to do anything and everything. Look, I was reading something Elizondo wrote. Joe Mergia had it on his Twitter account the other day, and it was very, very profound. It basically said that, what the government knows goes a lot further than what we actually understand. And he goes to point out, and I'm paraphrasing here, about how one of the big fears is that humanity is not ready for this. And I've been saying that for years. You know that. We've talked about it. And they are very concerned about what is actually happening with humanity. Look, there's people like you, like me, and other experiencers out there who might be able to handle it, might be able to. But there are those who are so blind to the fact that they are not going to find out until it happens. And that is going to cause full spread panic and full spread anxiety. And when people get anxious and people get panicked, bad things happen. The guns come out to play. The banking system, people start withdrawing all their money. That's never healthy. All right. It could be a real bastion of collapse for the economy, for everything. And I think that is a big part of it. The other thing, too, that I would say, and this is just my opinion, as we got about a minute left, and we're going to continue this conversation on the other side of the break, Terry. I really do believe that the United States government wants to keep these secrets because they're afraid that the government could fall because of what they've been keeping from the American people for decades.
Well, if the government was going to fall, well, maybe that's the reason why they haven't released the JFK files. I mean, we know that CIA's been in our newsrooms for the last, what is it now, 60 years? 55 years? And, I mean, we all know what JFK was doing. He was sleeping around on his wife. He was doing drugs and all kinds of other stuff. His dad was a bootlegger, and the mafia got him into office. But we didn't know any of that back then. So is it a control thing?
We'll find out more from Terry Hall on UFO Court here on Spaced Out Radio when we return for the final half
This
hour.
is Spaced Out Radio, and your host, Dave Scott.
brother. We're clear.
And see what the thing is, the government doesn't
Well,
really.
hold that thought until we get back.
Yeah, they just. It's not like they're making any more UFO gurus or anything. I have my own ideas of why they're doing this, but I'm a crazy old man.
I know you are.
Let me. I'll be right back, Dave.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Just stepping away to the table right here.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Dave.
Dave's not here, man.
Dave's not here. Cameron William Carter on X. Welcome. Hi, aloha, Dave. Terrible times. How you doing? Justin Goodearth, I'm surprised you're back. Thought you didn't like us. Faith First, Apex, how you doing? Nice to meet you here. Thank you for coming on in. Geek Al Gary. Pissing me off, Evan Walters. Pissing me off. Happy birthday, Magnus for Magnuson and Skip to Malou. Very much appreciate your birthdays, and I hope you had the best day ever. Lil Cam over on Twitch, he's on push-up number 552 right now for the show. 52.
So when Brian and Pam came over today, they went around the back of the RV and they noticed the stickers on the window. And they asked us what we were doing, and I told them, and so Brian, he goes to his car and he comes back with his business card.
Got some aliens.
Talk about fate. Oh, it did the numerology on his name. It's 11. It's 11.
Lisa Smith, how you doing? We'll send you some prayers for some surgery. She's going to surgery in a few hours. Let's send Lisa Smith some love and prayers.
All the good vibes, all the good energy.
You're going to do great, Lisa. You might come back with a third arm, but that's okay.
I'm not going to say it.
But yes, sending prayers and healing. The lovely Lisa Smith.
Keep Lisa in your thoughts and your prayers. It helps. Intent is everything.
My back is sore, Terry, when I've got the most comfy chair here in the world. It's a Serta chair, like a Serta Sealy.
Mine too.
And I cannot get comfortable in it today.
Did you go see your bone cracker today?
I did. And I know it's the healing, putting it back in place right now that I'm going through right now. So.
Lots of water, Dave, just like you're doing. Got to keep those joints lubed up, my friend.
Yes, that's why Bill WD-40 has to keep lubing up. Got to keep that lubing covered there, Bill.
Going back into sales, I told my boss I was so rusty that I was going to have to take a bath in WD-40 just to get this process started.
You just need Bill WD-40 there to lube you up, man. That's all you need to do. He'll get you going. We got about 55 seconds.
Yeah, we've got a good conversation coming up here.
Yeah, we do.
I think we might just upset some people this evening.
Yeah, whatever.
Hey, they all work for the government, so I really don't care.
Wouldn't be the first time. At this point in time, we say hello to all the agents and agencies tuning us in tonight. We really appreciate you listening in. Don't forget to give us a call sometime. You already have the phone number.
Yeah, the 3-letter and the 4-letter agencies. I got a 4-letter word for the 3-letter agencies.
Yeah, you do. I know you do, my man. It's my 3 a.m. MFer right there. That's right. Everybody should have a 3 a.m. MFer. That's all I'm saying. Terry's
Somebody
mine.
that you can call up at 3 a.m. and all you're going to hear is, "Where are you? I'm on the way."
Here we go, buddy. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you missed this show or others, our archives are always free. We don't charge for them. We don't like doing that. No, you get them free on any major podcast network or on YouTube. Go check it on out. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go, Terry Hall. Right before the break, we were talking about these threats that many people like Lou Elizondo and Gary Nolan are suggesting are happening to them. This is where they are getting less than enthusiastic response from alleged people within the government who are basically telling them, Terry, shut up.
Yeah. And Dave, it goes like this. Okay. So we realize that we're not alone in the universe. Okay. That's all well and good. Is the next question, okay, we know they're here. What energy source did they use to get here? Now, with election cycles coming up right now, you look at the lobbying that's going on in Washington and even with our neighbors to the north, a lot of it revolves around the oil industry, the oil and gas industry. That's one of the biggest pushers down here anyway, Dave. And if we have an alternative energy source, just like what happened in the early part of the 20th century, they were going to industrialize hemp. They had made a machine that was going to take it, the crop, and just make it the wave of the future. Henry Ford even built a car out of hemp and would travel around the country beating the thing with a sledgehammer, wouldn't even dent it. Well, the next thing you know, hemp was made illegal. It wasn't really made illegal, but in order to grow it, you had to have a tax stamp. And in order to get the tax stamp, you had to have it grown already. And if you already had it grown, you had broken the law. So they put that back in the bottle real quick. Well, is an alternative energy source going to upset our way of life so much in a way that money is made on this planet so much that it would cause a collapse? Do you think that could be the reason why they're trying to put it back in the bottle?
Could be. Could very well be. It's interesting to say the least. Here's the thing, though. If these threats are happening, okay, which I think there's enough evidence out there, go with it. All right. Where do we draw the line at taking this seriously? Because it's very easy to get locked into conspiracy theory when it comes to this topic, Terry. I mean, a lot of people, you know, whether you're a person who trusts the government or not, there is always people out there who are going to take things to the extreme and make, you know, The government is watching you through pinholes in your wall, that even though you're the one who put the pinholes in there to hang up.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you've heard them all. It gets ridiculous out there at times. But I'm not saying we should trust the government. That's a different topic in its entirety. But if these threats are happening over UFOs, my God, man, like, imagine being somebody who's a real gatekeeper to some amazing secrets.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, for us, the public, it's we can record sightings and we can share stories and gather as much information about that kind of stuff as we can, but we can't put hands on this technology. There's been really good strides taken here as recently to even maybe be able to predict or show where these things are coming from and where they're going to, or at least here. So, in other words, it'll give you a sign of, okay, be over there in the northeast quadrant. In about 10 minutes, something's going to happen over there. But then you've got, if that is the case, and you've got these people that are out there, your David Grushes and your Lou Elizondos, who are, or at least know the gatekeepers, is that the next step? Is to actually, you can say the names all you want, but until they come forward, it's not going to move the needle. And they're not going to come forward if even the guys who don't hold the keys to anything, but they have the information about the ones who do, are being threatened with their lives and their livelihoods and having just horrid things done to them. So that's a way to keep the genie in a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Not just put it back, but to keep it there.
Well, there was some controversy this week with outspoken attorney Daniel Sheehan basically claiming that he feared for his clients' lives because whistleblowers are being killed. And this goes after that one whistleblower mysteriously died from Boeing. And he was trying to correlate the two and tie it to Lou Elizondo. I thought that was a little bit of a far reach, to be fair. Okay, but I mean, maybe he was just trying to bring some light to the story that these things are happening. There's an entire underworld of the military industrial complex that we don't know about. But I mean, does that really tie to what's happening to Elizondo? Or is this Sheehan being somebody who is over exaggerating a little bit?
That goes to what I was saying just a few minutes ago. There's not going to be any more Grant Camerons, right? Grant has been minted and made, and our heavyweights in the industry are set in stone. So is it one of those things to where Lou was up here for a while, and then he got to the point to where he said it was just getting to be overwhelming and he disappeared? Well, the book's coming out, and now Danny's out here speaking up again. Is it good press? Any controversy is good controversy as long as it gets it pushed in front of the public's eyes. At least in this industry, that's what I've seen. What do you think?
Oh my goodness, that's such a tough road to go down. Look, I've interviewed Danny Sheehan a couple of times on this show, and it is something where he is very, very, adamant these things are happening. And just because he's an activist lawyer that has ties back to the days of Watergate, people love him. They believe everything that he says. And I think for the most part, he's been usually right on all of this for himself. That being said, we do know that lawyers are people who tend to exaggerate, maybe, or what's the other word I'm looking for? Manipulate what they can for the benefit of their clients. Okay. And I'm not sure if that's what we're seeing, but I thought that, sometimes Danny, when he opens his mouth, and I've heard this from other people, so it's not that I'm giving him a cheap shot or anything. But I've heard other people say when Danny opens his mouth, sometimes he opens it a little bit too far. Okay.
Danny is a wordsmith. He's always been a wordsmith ever since the days back during Watergate, right? But nobody's ever called Danny a liar.
No, I don't think he's a liar. I don't think he's a liar at all.
Yep. So I don't know. Like I said, Danny's a wordsmith, and he knows how to get things in the public eye. And I'll be honest with you, when he started talking about people dying in this industry or being murdered in this industry, it perked my ears up.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I just said, Danny might open his mouth a little bit too far sometimes, but no one's ever called Danny a liar.
They have given him heck, though, for releasing stuff that he shouldn't be releasing.
Maybe that's why his hair has been so white for so long.
Right? He does have gorgeous hair, doesn't he? What is he? 82, 83 years old, and he's still got the curly, frolicking locks that he probably had at 10.
That guy, he's a machine. But in the UFO world, Danny's the right guy for the job, though, because he's willing to come out and do what he's doing right now. Even being the world famous, not only orator, I mean, the guy can capture a crowd and keep them there for hours, but lawyer, friend, confidant. Danny's been that for a lot of people for a long time. And Dave, how often have you gone out and people have no idea about any of this?
No?
So any press is good press. If it's going to be one of those kind of monumental things that's going to cause a shift in everything, do what you can to get it out there. And maybe the government just doesn't want that to happen because they realize that these kids nowadays, the internet's only been around for like 25 years. Look at how much it's changed the world. Just the internet. In 25 years, look at what it's done. If we can go to something like 0 point energy, Westinghouse said it a long time ago. How am I supposed to put a meter on that?
How do you? I mean, that's the big question, And it still comes down to the idea, though, that many people out there are having struggles on where is the truth. Okay, we're not getting the truth through evidence. We're not getting the proof through whistleblowers. We're not getting the truth and the proof through the government agencies. Everybody seems to be bagging on everybody. It's an absolute WWE battle royal each and every day on social media platforms, and people throwing other people under the bus because your proof is different than mine. My proof is different than our audiences. And that's where everybody seems to be at loggerheads, Terry. I mean, so what is the truth? What is proof anymore? I really don't know. And I'm not saying that to be sarcastic or profound or to put myself on a pedestal, but I wish someone would show me what they are doing because I don't believe anybody anymore. I don't think you can.
Well, back in the day, it wasn't even too long ago. the heavyweights in the industry thought that it would be a monumental shift in everything if the government would just come out and admit that UFOs were real. Well, that happened, and it didn't even, I mean, it caused a blip for about a half a second. Then Grush came out, straight up said, we've got UFOs, we've got the bodies, we it didn't even cause a blip for a half a second.
But
And
even look at Carl Nell at the SALT conference, where he basically said he strongly believes that non-human intelligence is here. Now, where people get frustrated is somebody from Nell's position can come out and say that easily, just like you and I can. Okay. But we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. We're not going to get proof, people. We're not going to get proof. He can't provide proof. He's not going to bring out videos. He's not going to bring out witnesses. It's a trust me, bro situation that drives everybody nuts, Terry. But you have to start somewhere. And maybe that's why I'm not as frustrated as I am with this subject. I'm not as frustrated with the people who are coming out talking about it, because that's all we have right now. And when they shut up, this entire thing goes right back under the carpet.
Yep. And the thing is, it's been said for a long time, those who forget their history are doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over and over again. Well, I remember Bob Bigelow being on 2020 when 2020 was one of the biggest shows on TV, and straight up said, they're here. They've been here. They could be in the same room with you and you wouldn't know it. So how many people have to say that, and for how long do they have to say it? And like, okay, Oumuamua went by. After Oumuamua went by, we had a spike in sightings for what's going on it's going on almost 2 years now, right? Since then. And we watched Star Trek for years. What do they do on Star Trek? They go to a planet, they send their little probes out, and the next thing you know, they're down there making a treaty with somebody. Oumuamua wasn't from this galaxy. We had sightings after Oumuamua went by and slingshotted and accelerated out into space again. Maybe the next thing you know, we're going to be having treaties with whoever's going to come to visit.
Well, we're going to see, dude. We're going to see.
Everybody's saying, Dave, this is the year of change. It's supposed to be some big change.
Could be.
And that's what made me wonder that's what made me wonder to begin with, of why the government came forward and said that UFOs are real, and that maybe it's coming to a point to where they thought they were going to come and land on the White House lawn, and something changed, and they're just trying to put everything back to where it was.
Here's an interesting comment from Moody Mongol in our chat room. We've lost the great generation of ufologists. Who would have headed this up, scrutinized well the info? No degree carrying Stanton T. Friedman's today we get Jeremy Corbell.
You can cast dispersions at Jeremy and George and people of their ilk and like. And, with Jeremy, he's probably wrong as much as he is right. Probably wrong more often than he is right. But he can capture attention. And that's always been his primary focus. It's not being wrong or right. It's getting the message out. And who would head this kind of stuff up? Well, let me tell you. There's a guy sitting in front of you this evening who was going to go to a meeting with their government And because of pettiness and jealousy, something that could have been monumental was completely derailed because of the people in this field. We can't get along. Doesn't matter what we do, what we try. There's always going to be the person that wants to be the prima donna for the week. And it's just like you said, where's the great generation of ufologists is like I said, those people were minted. We're not going to make any more. So who's going to be the next guy is the people that we put our trust and faith in. Like Dave.
Me?
I mean, I don't know, you guys. There's some times that I go back and I think, what was going on in this field like 6 years ago today? And I can go back in the archives, and you can be dang sure bet that Dave covered it that night. So these are the people that we need to look at now. The Stanton T. Friedmans and the Jim Mars and those guys unfortunately, they're gone. So who's going to pick up and carry the flame? The guy with the sore back. That's who's going to pick up and carry the flame.
Well, on that note, we got about 45 seconds left here. And I'm just curious, if you were to choose one or two people that are in the new generation that are going to lead the cause, who are you taking?
Christine, for one. And we're talking young, right?
Yeah.
That's a tough one because there's
10
a couple of young guys out there. Well, honestly, I'd say Dave. And I'm not going young anymore. I'm just saying the person that I would trust the most with this kind of stuff would be Dave Scott.
On that note, we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brothers watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god itself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, Elgato, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyrighted by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Good job, Terrence Hall.
Got you back, buddy. Got you back. Thanks for having me on. It's nice to see everybody again. Everybody knows, man, I stay in the rear with the gear, but when Dave needs me, here I am.
That's what we love about you, man. Thank you. Making a good show. Gentry Anderson, how are you? Who else came late?
Hi, Gentry. Oh, my goodness.
And who else is next?
Good to see you too, everybody. I miss you, Gentry.
Sweet. Robbie.
My phone number's still the same, Gentry.
Yeah,
by the way.
She has my number too, and she never calls.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you feel lonely?
I don't know. I think there may be a little information that Gentry might need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be nice if she called. She doesn't call.
Gentry. Even if you don't call me, call Dave, because I think there's something that you need to know. And we would just let it lay there. And speaking of lay, I'm going to go examine the inside of my eyelids for a few hours because I have to get up and when it's still going to be dark. You know what I mean? So love you guys.
Look at that, Terry. Look at that.
Love you, Gentry.
Hey,
Have a great night, guys.
Hey, is that what I think it's about? Is that what I think it's about? Just a hi or a nay?
Here, I'll DM you.
Yeah. Hey, Gentry, just give me a couple. Gentry, give me a couple minutes. I'll call you right back.
Yeah.
She actually called. Look at that.
I'm glad she did.
Yeah.
Very glad she did.
Yeah.
Let's see, Mr. Dave. Oh, wait, that's my other phone. That's the rolling phone.
You know what's funny is I'm on Walter M. Sterling on Sundays. I do a hit on that show each and every night. But he's been doing it a lot with us lately. And he's got these AI songs that sound like they're from like the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And they must be AI songs. But he's got like 3 or 4 different theme songs for me that he's created. They're absolutely hilarious.
Dude, you talk about AI songs?
Yeah.
And here you go with your deja vu again, Dave. Gentry. When we were out in the desert, we were doing a CE5 at Gentry's behest, and she provided like the whole soundtrack for it. It was awesome.
Nice. Is that me? You know what, guys? I'll be honest with you. I've kind of been a little, how can I say it? Weary, I guess would be the proper word, of the whole AI thing. Can you create music on there? I honestly don't know.
Yes, actually you can. As a matter of fact, here we go again, Dave. You just did it again. Okay. So Brian and Pam are good friends. You're talking about AI and this industry, at least intent and astral projection and things. So we were talking about that today. Well, it just so happens that they are good friends with somebody who did something called Operation Space Monkey. And it ties in a whole lot of different things. As a matter of fact, you guys, maybe I should put these guys in touch with you and you do an interview with them because it's that kind of, it's a whole new way of looking at this stuff, dude. But it's really cool though. It was Pat Horned, and I'll send you the information about it. If you guys that are in the listening audience, if you get a chance and you want to find out what AI can do or some of the potentials that AI can do, at least as far as this industry goes, one of the things you can look up is Project Space Monkey. It's really but once again, it's a rabbit hole. Is it? Everything in this industry is a rabbit hole, Dave. Doesn't it feel that way? Well, look, I'm going to go crawl in my rabbit hole and examine the inside of my eyelids. Give me a holler tomorrow. Let me know how your back's feeling. Thanks for having me on. I miss all you guys. I love your audience, Dave. Everybody's so great.
Man.
And Gentry, I miss you.
Hey, dude, I'll call you at my normal time after work.
Alrighty. Ciao for now.
Take care. All right, everybody else, big thank you tonight to Major Lee, ACDC, CS, and Deborah Rooney for the great super chats. We very much appreciate the love and support. Tomorrow night on the show, Blaine Tyler will be here. We're going to be talking some Bigfoot investigation in the province of Ontario. If you've been listening to this show long enough, you should know where Ontario is. I don't have to say Toronto, Canada. Don't have to say that. Bugs me. Just bugs me. On that note, we'll say good night to you all. Good night. I'm going now.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.